Hi, everybody. This is Martha Creek. This is a series called Mentoring Moments with Martha. So it's not for me to mentor, it's for me to be mentored. And if you're mentored by it, that's a bonus. And I get to hang out with some of the coolest people on the planet, literally. And I've chosen for these interviews people that I believe live a life with purpose and a life on purpose. And I believe if you're listening, if it's some synchronistic way this podcast or video has made its way to you, that you're living with purpose too. And that whatever you're about, this is then devoted to uplifting you, to be further about what you're about, and to get a new empowerment and a new encouragement for whatever you're about. So I have the privilege today to be with Reverend Beth Head. She's a personal friend, a colleague, a mentor, a mentee, a student of life, a teacher, a preacher, and then some. And we've been knowing each other for many, many years now. So thank you, Beth, for taking the time to bring your own wisdom here to this mentoring moment.
Thank you, and for inviting me.
So I usually start with something like, imagine somebody's listening to this and you have a chance in just a line or two, a simple sentence, to convey what you want all of humanity to know. What would it be if you could convey one solid message?
Well, I guess I have two that are sort of interlocking. And one of those is that you are loved by the universe beyond measure, beyond our understanding, beyond our comprehension. And that, I know that intellectually, and sometimes I know that in my heart. But I so totally believe it. And it interlocks with my other little piece, and that is, no matter what happens in our life, no matter what's going on, if we can stay in this moment, we can get through whatever. And like many people, I have a fear of the dentist. And so I can get worked up, or not so much anymore, but used to I could get worked up. I got a dentist appointment next week. I got a dentist appointment tomorrow. I've got a dentist appointment this morning. Oh my God, I better take some pain pills. I better. And so I got to the point where I could sit in the dentist chair and I would say the prayer for protection, just over and over and over. If I lost the prayer for protection, I'd say, God loves me, Jesus loves me, God loves me, prayer for protection. Light of God surrounds me. And I would just keep saying that. And all of a sudden my visit would be over. And so what I have found is that there are many things that happen to us in life where we just need to have the trust and the faith that we can get through this moment. And then we can get through the next moment. And we can get through the moment after. Now, I may not know that I can get through the next day, but I can be here right this minute and know that God is with me and that I am okay in this moment. In May, I tripped and fell outside of a hotel on the sidewalk, and I could not get up, and there was no one around, and I was in pain. I had broken my arm and my shoulder up here in the ball, and skinned my knees, bumped my head, all of that. And so probably for 4 or 5 minutes, I was just there by myself. And then presence of mind came along, and I was just saying, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this. And the thought came to me, well, I'm supposed to be arriving at the church in Fort Myers to give my Sunday talk. And so I pulled out my phone and I called, I guess I called Deb Howard is who I called, and said, Deb, I have fallen. I've broken something. I'm not going to be there. Call Carla Palmer. I'm sure she'll take care of it. And so there I'm still sitting there on the sidewalk all by myself in pain. And I had to fall back on that. I can get through this. I can do this. And sure enough, somebody came along and they got an ambulance and they got me to the hospital. And I got through that. Boy, at the hospital, they really tried can I get through this? When they told me they were going to put a cast on it, I couldn't even move it. And I can get through this. I can do this. And those are physical pains. And I believe physical pain is tough. I've been in financial pain, and I know I could get through it. And I've been in emotional pain. It's not quite as easy. I've had times where, it didn't look like things at church were right, but I got through it. So that's what I'd want to tell somebody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is loaded. So if you are listening to this, I hope you'll rewind it and take notes on this, because what Reverend Beth is pointing to here, and you may reference it as prayer, as meditation, as a mantra, as self-soothing, as medicine, as good, very good medicine. You may reference it as self-talk, as positive affirmations, as denials and affirmations. So whatever context you put around this, you have been given another invitation to a depth of affirming that is being demonstrated here in her sharing this story that is not just conceptual. So it's not a platitude of affirming, it's not a platitude of prayer and meditation, but an embodiment of prayer and meditation that only comes with deliberate, causative, intentional action and practice. And pain is a motivator for darn sure, whether it's emotional, spiritual, psychic, financial, relational, familial, spousal, or the physical, broken bones and blood. So this
COVID-19 pandemic or racial tension or political tension, it works in every one of those.
Yes.
God is in the midst of this. And so if I know it for me, I know it broader. I know it broader that our country will get through this. There are times when I knew that our congregation would get through this, or my family would get through this. And so now I'm saying our country's going to get through this. Our world is going to get through this.
Well, this is more than just an affirmation, though. So speak about what you think the difference is of us walking around, for example, and you've heard me say it, us high righteous spiritual types walking around going, it's all good, it's all good. It's like, it in the absolute, maybe. Back here at the ranch, there are tensions. Back here at the ranch, there is division. There is polarization. There is upsets. There is broken shoulders and blood. There are things that are not pleasant. that are painful, hurtful, and that. So speak about the gap, Beth, of affirming, I'll get through this, I'll get through this, I'll get through this, we'll come through this. I'm affirming that. And the difference of embodying that, feeling that, knowing that I know it, even though I can't see it, I don't know how. And this platitude of, I'll get through this. So speak about the gap there, or what the bridge from claiming to believe it and actually believing it is, that chasm.
Well, I think when you're feeling the feeling, acknowledging what you're seeing, acknowledging the hurt you're seeing or feeling, and knowing that as unpleasant as it is, this too shall pass. I will get through this. And it's not to say that I won't have to go through something else again. I mean, it's not to say that tomorrow won't bring another growth opportunity, because it is going to bring another growth opportunity. I mean, I've been here long enough to know that the picture that's behind me is from Alaska, and that's fireweed. And fireweed is beautiful. And when it blooms, it blooms from the bottom to the top of the stalk. And at the end of the summer, it's blooms out at the top and has some little white filmy stuff on it. And you know that the snow's going to fly. It's going to get cold. It's that beautiful day. That day you're going to walk outside without any ice on the ground is coming to an end. And so I think that all of us who live here on this planet, I had the idea that when I went to ministerial school, it would all be roses. I was going to learn how to make it all just sweet and roses thereafter. Not. And so when I say it's this too shall pass, it'll pass and it'll be better until the next thing that comes along.
Yeah, well, you've spoken to that nature has been a teacher for me and for many, for you, obviously, and for others that'll be listening, that what we can learn from that fireweed or what would you call it?
Fireweed.
Fireweed, and that it has its own course and it knows when to bloom, will bloom perfectly according to its own impulses, its own DNA. Then it dies off, and then the ice comes in there and blooms for several months. Ice blooms. So
for more than several.
Ice sheets. And then this delusion that it's going to be fireweed all the time, or it's going to be that beautiful fuchsia all the time, versus it's going to be the both and of that. So if there's anything that you take away from this, to begin to think about, listeners, what it would be to include the whole spectrum of it. Like for years, I went without a broken bone at all. Like that's a pretty broad perspective to have. Like all these years, all the chances, all the potential that I had for broken bones, for falling, for whatever. And then I didn't have it. Now I've got a broken bone. So here it is. This too will heal, pass, find its reconciliation, have its recovery time in its own timing, and then I'll continue in whatever form I'm in, having incorporated that, having integrated that into my own life. So to know that it's going to be both and to lose our addiction to everything's going to be peachy rosy all the time, and the naivete of that, to grow into. Not only are we going to go through things, but we're going to grow through things, and we're not going to like it. Things that grow us. My friend Steve used to refer to it as, I don't want to grow through anything else. I'd rather have a good cheeseburger. And it's like, well, good luck. Have your cheeseburger. And as long as we're in the physical, we're going to have some things to navigate here. You also spoke about a message I intently want to convey to anybody going into a profession, whether it's ministry. So if you don't have a calling for ministry, it doesn't have to apply to you. But if you're going into a nonprofit organization thinking it's all going to be peachy and rosy, it's like you're sabotaging yourself. And certainly if you go into ministry, if you have a child, if you think, oh, I'm going to have a child, it's going to be peachy, peachy, peachy all the time. It's like, it won't. It's like, so do anything you can today to snap out of it. And after I've gotten rid of most everything I own, year after year after year for 30 some years now. And one of the little things that's made it through with me after all of that giving away, downsizing, getting rid of, freeing up, is a little Mary Engelbreit doll that's about that tall. I don't even know if she's still alive. I mean, not alive in the physical, but if the thoughts of Mary Engelbreit are alive, but she's got her hands on her hip, bent over slightly, and the caption is "Snap out of it." So maybe that'll be the title of this interview today. Snap out of any notion that there's not going to be some falling in there, and some pain, and some dark moments, and doubting, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And you have the power and the incline and the impulse in you to meet that doubt and to meet that pain, as Beth has described here, as this actually will pass. This actually will pass. What can I do now? What would be sane, sensible action here? I can get through this. I always have, which I call what you've depicted, honey, as referring to my direct experience instead of to images of it. And because the images will show horror pictures of how awful this is going to be versus, now, wait a minute. How do other people get through this? How have I gotten through tense and painful times before? And then invoking our own wisdom. So what else would you say to ministers or anybody else going into their professions, going into a new profession, even, that you would call a foundation of truth instead of it's all going to be peaches and roses?
I don't know that I guess what I'd have to say is, there's a story we tell in ministry about the person that goes to the city gate, and he asks the gatekeeper, what are the people going to be like here? And the gatekeeper says, well, what are the people like where you came from? And and the man said, oh, they were just, they were mean, they were nasty, they were stingy. And the gatekeeper said, well, that's what you'll find here. I think you should go on. And the next person came and asked the gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper said, well, what are those people like? He said, well, they were nice, they were friendly, we got along, and they worked to help me. And the gatekeeper said, well, come on in. And so what I would say is, Gerald and I have lived in a lot of places. We've lived in Houston and Anchorage and North Carolina and Florida. And the people have been lovely everywhere we've gone, because I've expected them to be lovely. If you leave a job, a profession, and you're unhappy, chances are you're going to find that where you go. So you might want to look for that which is good where you are. You might want to excel so much, do so good where you are, that the universe propels you into something better. I would I had great jobs before I became a minister, and I had great people at great jobs. I expected to find those people. Well, I want to say that. Oops, I'm going to stop there a second. I didn't always. When I was younger, I had somewhere I didn't like it. But what I found is when I went to the next place, the people I left behind came with me. And so until I changed me, so however you go forward, you can't, don't walk into anything expecting it to change your life. It will change your life, but whether it changes it for the better or not, that's going to depend a lot on you.
Well, and what we call it, like if I name it, whatever I name it, I become it. Whatever I name it, I experience it. And that I'm not hearing that as you went in expecting to have supportive, helpful, generous, kinder people. And you generally had that. You had a high majority of that experience, which doesn't deny that there wasn't a knucklehead or two sprinkled in there.
Oh, a few.
And, and that there was.
I had to pray them away.
Exactly. So then, and that's really my encouragement here is to go in. I'm going to go in absolutely intentional, causative, deliberate to see what works, what's good, how are we functioning here. We generally are clicking along on all 4 burners, 6 burners most of the time for us responsible types and oldest and highly functional doers, achievers. And there's going to be times where there's something that's out of left field or something that I really didn't count on or that I don't prefer, I don't like, I don't want, I don't believe I need. That's going to be a part of my experience that's here also to grow me and to grow me up. So whatever you're doing, whatever age you are listening to this, whatever profession you're about to leave or join into, know that people are people. The whole spectrum of people are represented in any part of the world, regardless of what gate you go through, regardless of what profession you enter, regardless of what family you marry into, what college you attend or whatever. The whole spectrum of humanity is going to be represented there. So our work then and our emotional and spiritual maturity requires us, if we mature, to include the whole spectrum instead of to live in reactivity to the whole spectrum. So you've gotten, not only have you navigated this, that you had a longer tenure in ministry than most people can even comprehend. It's unheard of anymore to be serving the way you did as senior minister and lead minister, while supporting a marriage and family and kids and grandkids and another profession. So speak about that, like what your call was to leave your CPA. You have been, I don't know if you're still licensed or not.
Licensed. I was always the square peg in the round hole in the accounting firms, in my own mind, but I would always be given the difficult clients because I could deal with them. And so I was much better at the people part than I was at the dry technical stuff. I was kind of bored by, let me learn how to do it. And it's exciting. But once I've done it once or twice, So accounting in itself has some real benefits for those of us who need order in any place in our life, because accounting is very orderly. You get to a right answer. You know when you're at the right answer. And there are times in ministry you don't never know if you're in the right answer. You just think you might be in the right place. But I had a boss who I had a boss who had us all take the Myers-Briggs, and the Myers-Briggs interpreter came back and said, which one of you is the chief operating officer? And I said, I am. And he said, you need to find yourself another profession. You'd be happier. And I kind of had that thought that I might want to be in another profession. Because the first time I'd gone to a Unity church when I was late teens and saw a woman minister, I thought, I want to do that. And I had been going to a Unity church and watching the minister, and for some reason that desire had kind of come up. And my boss gave me a book that told me to go to on this retreat I was going to. She said, take a day and do this book. And it was a little book called How to Get Control of Your Time and Your Life by Alan Lakin. And in it is a process where you list everything you've ever wanted to do. And then you keep playing this one or that one, this one, until you get to the number one thing. And then you sit down and think of 10 things that you can do. And so when I did that, becoming a Unity minister was at the number one part of my list. Now, I had not had the first SEE class. I hadn't done anything toward that. So but I went back and it made me make a list of things I could do. I went back and I registered to go to SEE. I went to Toastmasters. And I proceeded along. I never told the minister at the church even what I was thinking about doing. And I kept doing my accounting and kind of inching into this Unity stuff. Did I want to be a minister? Did I want to be a minister? And one time when I came back from Unity Village, the administrator of the church where I went, Unity of Raleigh, the administrator mentioned that she was leaving, and I walked up to her and said, I think I might want to try your job. And so the minister had me come in and he offered me the job, and that's when he found out that my goal was to become a minister. So I worked at the church for a year or so before I went to ministerial school. And that was such valid experience, because then I had the opportunity to see what church was like. I was already working at a nonprofit, so I had already learned the lesson of not expecting church or nonprofits to be so totally different from business.
Yeah, well, I believe that's true. And you depicted it clearly here with everything that we did that prepared us for what we're going to do next and how the doors open. You've also spoken here, Beth, to like it wasn't by happenstance. So it's like you had a wishbone active. You also had a backbone active that says, I have a course plan. I know what it's going to take to do this. I'm going to be inching that off. I'm going to be like clicking that off. And that's a real difference with me. As I listen to some of this and people's notions about manifesting and things, like they're going to sit and hum or ohm until they become a minister. And I'm like, well, go ahead, knock yourself out. In my world, it'll require me to take some coursework, as far as I know. And everybody I know that took the path, they was required to take some coursework. So I'm really working on these interviews and this podcast series also not to use lingo. And I'm really calling myself on it. So SEE, folks, is spiritual education enrichment. Spiritual enrichment education. Beth, do you even know can you straighten me out on it? So it's a coursework for Unity that you can find out all about Unity at unity.org, or Google Unity churches near me. You'll find out about this, how to clue in. There's services now every single Sunday, meditations almost every day of the week, some kind of class works with various Unity ministries throughout the world, really. And you can join in any without having to join anything or whatever. So you can check that out. And this SEE represents one of the paths and the channels for deepening the education and your spiritual practice around that.
And it's all online.
And it's all online, and you don't have to have a calling as a minister to do it or to enroll officially. You can take classes and learn and enrich yourself spiritually, emotionally, intellectually through these paths and otherwise. So if this is your path, then jump on it and keep the teaching close to you. If it's not your path, then find your path and jump on it and stay close to it, whatever the teaching is. So as we come to a close, think about, reflect on your own life, and like a key word, and like the reason, like somebody told me, like when we think about a purpose in life, it described it as, you know, your life's on purpose if you are growing yourself, which you've put forth clearly here. And that's just a thumbnail of how you, Beth, have grown yourself. And that you're not done growing, that you retired from ministry, you're still serving ministry in a very specific role of support, of mentoring, of coaching, counseling, regional repping, and bringing all of your experience to that. You're also still very alive with accounting and serving people in that profession. You're also mothering and grandmothering and wifing and mahjonging and others, traveling and looking forward to travel. So I thank you for that and for representing a model for me and for others that can see that the necessity that living on purpose is growing myself and continuing to, that it's not a tick box exercise, and that you're clear that what you're doing is beneficial to you and it's also benefiting others. The things you do are beneficial to others, to individuals, to families, to groups, to congregations, to the whole of the soul of humanity, and that there's an element of joy in it. Elements of joy in that, and that's vital. So if you are listening to this, see if you can use that framework, this technique that's best laid out here, this book, these mantras, anything that's been offered here is all offered freely in our devotion and our sincere desire to have you to have uplift to your life, more purpose in your life, and a purposeful living. So what do you want to say in closing?
Just go out and love, find somebody to love kids, love people. You can't love too much.
Amen, sister. And you can always love some fireweed. So yeah, love, find something to love. No limits there. All right. So let them know how to reach you if you want to, honey. Any websites or emails, anything you want to put on here. It's not necessary, but if you want to, how to be in contact with you.
My address, my email address is revbethdh@aol.com. And if you Southeast Regional Rep, so you can go to the Southeast Region website and find my email and my phone number there also. I'm available.
Yeah, and then some. So thank you for joining, for listening, and contact me, marthacreek.com. My email, phone number, everything's there. There's also hundreds of free podcasts and videos, and now these interviews and everything. You can use them any way you can to bring empowered teachings to the whole of the planet, which is my mission and vision. So till we meet again, all blessings. MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.